Do you, like many human adults, suffer from frequent discomfort, stabbing pains, splitting headaches, your entire skeleton exploding, and your ghost wafting into the stratosphere like an anguished fart? What if I told you there was a better way? Introducing Being Eaten by the Worm. With Being Eaten by the Worm, you can kiss those everyday aches and pains goodbye. Being Eaten by the Worm is an easy and effective solution to the ongoing communication between your nervous system and brain. In a clinical trial, 100% of participants showed a complete and permanent cessation of all pain with just one application of Being Eaten by the Worm. And best of all, Being Eaten by the Worm has zero side effects, just the digestion of your basic genetic components for the betterment and glory of our hungry and indifferent God. Ask your doctor today if Being Eaten by the Worm is right for you. Welcome to Random Game Reviews. I made a spreadsheet containing every game in the PlayStation Store, and use my Discord chatbot as a random number generator to determine which games I will play and review. This time, Woodlebot demands Nidhogg 2. One of the great joys of doing this project is being completely blindsided by a game I've never heard of. I booted up Nidhogg 2 and settled in with the character creator. Immediately, I noticed that the character designs have this cute claymation look that reminded me of the game Clay Fighter for SNES. I crafted my little clay buddy that I called Scurfy and got ready to take him out into the world, presumably on a grand adventure. And in this world there's a lot going on. There's a dancing naked guy, an airship with a tumor, and this awful worm unicorn. Little did I know, the adventure I'd be taking Scurfy on was one of extreme violence and general depravity. At its core, Nidhogg 2 is a game about competitive stabbing, and I got stabbed so many times. In the face, in the heart, and in the dick. It works like this. You and your opponent face off in a duel with such instruments as rapiers, broadswords, daggers, and short bows. When one fighter dispatches the other, they gain the momentum and have the opportunity to book it as fast as they can to the opponent's side of the screen before they respawn. If that first fighter is then mortally stabbed and bone sploded, the momentum shifts in the other direction, turning this shankfest into a tug of war, or reminiscent of how offensive possession works in football, where you need to reach the opposing end zone. When you manage to reach that end zone, you are bestowed the greatest honor this game has on offer, being consumed by this awful worm beast that kinda looks like a mutated scrotum. That's actually the victory screen in this game. Just truly horrific. This is obviously a pretty violent game. It's fairly gruesome getting your brain skewered or stomping an opponent to death as they spurt blood and goo all over the place. If a match has gone on for a while, things can get messy. And let's not forget the aforementioned bone explosions. In terms of controls, the only two buttons are jump and stab, but play is so chaotic that it can be hard to figure out all the finer details. So, here's a quick primer for future Nidhogg 2 players. Pushing down on your direction stick while running initiates a roll, during which you can pick up discarded weapons. One of the trickiest things early on is figuring out your stance. Pressing up or down on your control stick changes the height that you hold your rapier, or whether you'll block low or high with your broadsword. And if you hold up and then attack, you'll whip your weapon at whatever's in front of you, which I constantly did by accident while panicking. Jumping and attacking initiates a flying kick, ducking lets you go after ankles, and if you find yourself without a weapon, you can just stomp your opponent into a fine paste. Most importantly, the best strategy is often going over or under your opponent so you can just run screaming towards the loving maw of the worm. The weapon variation is really fun and leads to some interesting challenges, like what the hell do you do when you spawn with a little dagger, but the other person is swanging their broadsword around? But all weapons are not created equal. I found the technical challenge of the rapier to be delightful, but on the other end of the spectrum, found the short bow too slow to be effective, turning any time I spawned with one into a likely death sentence. Each weapon will come with its own set of strategies for each type of matchup, forcing you to rethink what you need to do to control the space. What makes this game a success is how tense the matches are, with each fight devolving into a desperate mess of scrambly chaos that could be over in less than a minute, or sprawl out into a 10-minute affair filled with stalemates and fighting your way back from the brink. Nidhogg 2 is a fighting game distilled to its most basic elements, which is something I'm surprised I don't see more of. If you're not worried about pulling off combos, what's left is a back alley life or death knife fight that is very thrilling. You can play solo in arcade mode, but that's a 30-minute campaign that mostly just serves as a tutorial. The actual fun of Nidhogg 2 is multiplayer. You can allegedly play against strangers online, but I could never seem to get matched with anyone. But no worries. I called my sister to come over, and what ensued was probably the most fun night of multiplayer gaming I've had in a long time. I was able to mercilessly beat her ass for the first half hour while she figured out how things worked, and then enjoyed another half hour of parody, before she surpassed me and stomped me into the dirt because she's far and away the better gamer. Nidhogg 2 is a classic sleepover game, where the ingredients involved are silly and unpredictable enough that something is always going to happen that makes you laugh. We, two adults in our 30s, spent hours giggling like absolute children. And the game lets you tailor matches to your preferences, turning off certain weapons or turning on cheat codes, though none of them seem to improve on the base formula. And if you happen to have a bunch of friends over, you can run a tournament for up to 8 players with whatever rules you desire. The pace and intensity of this game makes it a real sweaty experience, and I can't remember the last time I shouted in victory or frustration as much as I did with this game. But as much fun as I had with Nidhogg 2, I have to address the dangling, quivering sphincter in the room. This game is f***ing gross. Just truly grotesque. You're forced to deal with this parade of guts and monstrosities and poo, but also rainbows? It's a weird vibe in here. Did you know that the first Nidhogg looked like this? I kinda wish it still did. It's time to answer the question, would I play this game if I were not destined to do so? For Nidhogg 2, the answer is yes. Nidhogg 2 is easily the most fun I've had with local multiplayer in a long time. The gameplay is intense and straightforward, with just enough technical nuance for there to be depth to the strategies you deploy. I'm not sure the game needed to be as gross as it is, but it didn't really hamper my enjoyment. The one thing working against Nidhogg 2 is I don't think I can recommend it to you if you don't have someone to play with. Single player is fun for a little bit, but I can't say it's worth $20 if you don't get to experience what truly makes it great. That does it for this episode. Episode 40 of Random Game Reviews is coming up, and to celebrate, I'd like to give viewers the opportunity to dictate what I play. I'll be taking suggestions, putting them in a spreadsheet, and picking randomly from that list. If you want to make a request, follow the link in the video description to my Discord server, and post in the Episode 40 Game Requests channel. A winner will be selected 2 weeks from today. Until next time, work real hard and do your best so you can get eaten by the worm, and I'll see you all soon on Random Game Reviews.
I was eaten by the worm.
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 I too was eaten by the worm.
I was eaten by the worm, and I'd do it again.
I was eaten by the worm. And guess what? You can too.
Being eaten by the worm. It's for winners.